But the Bill of Rights weren't approved until 1791. What happened was, way back when they wrote the Constitution, there was this struggle between guaranteeing rights and guaranteeing order. And when they had finished, the people on the ground said, not enough protection for our rights, too much law and order. So there was a promise that they would amend the Constitution with I think there were 12 or 14 amendments, and 10 of them got adopted. And they were our first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And the first one is you guys all have it, you can read it, but it's long language, okay? It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition government. So in the same paragraph, we're talking about speech and what we lawyers call verbal acts. In other words, things that kind of fit in with free speech, but which go a little bit further. So protesting is protected as free speech or free assembly. It's related. And over the years, the question has been, what fits within this paragraph? This language deals only with Congress. And originally I'm not Congress, the federal government. Originally there was a fear that the federal government would become too strong. But as time went on, people realized state governments could violate these rights as well. And so this was extended to protect people from the overreaching by the state as well. Now, just an interesting aside, I'm a legislator. And anybody who ever reads about me in the newspaper sees I say some outrageous things. Not like the guy who's running for president, but I'm not afraid to speak out. And I've gotten pushback from the governor and others like that. But you know what's interesting is, this is an issue that has been around forever. The right of government officials to speak out. So important that the United States Constitution actually guarantees that a member of Congress cannot be arrested during attendance at the session of the House, and cannot be held accountable for anything they say on the floor of the House of Representatives or the Senate. And we have a similar paragraph in the New York State Constitution. So this concept of free speech plays out in so many different ways, and we actually have protections so that your elected officials should not be afraid to speak out. I spoke out one time during a session of the town board of Greenburgh many years ago, and I made some comments about somebody. They sued me for libel. Well, one of my defenses was that I have a right to say anything while I'm acting as a government official. Now, obviously, it can't be treasonous. It can't be encouraging people to commit a felony, or I can't be committing a felony. But, if it's related to my job, I'm not supposed to be afraid to say that. And so this concept is very deeply embedded in our way of doing things in this country. And it sometimes comes up against some other very important principles. And you've seen it here on campus. I'll get to that in a minute. But let me give you an example of something that, I don't know how many of you guys saw the movie on TV about the desegregation in Yonkers, which happened many years ago. Some people may have seen it. It was a series on a Sunday night not too long ago. There was a big fight in Yonkers before all of your time, okay, over segregation in Yonkers. And the city council decided, for whatever reasons, it was going to take whatever money it got and put that money into the poorer parts of town. The end result was, it just increased segregation in the poorer parts of town. And there's still a debate today over how do you deal with helping people who are poorer. Should you build housing in other parts of town and let them move there? Or should you fix up the community that's not doing well? At any rate, the city council, some of whom frankly were racist, decided that they were going to resist a federal court order. And so they refused to vote for monies that a federal judge told them that they had to vote for. He held them in contempt for failure to vote. But think about this for a second now. What happened to that old concept that we had of separation of powers, where the legislature can do one thing and a court can't tell it to do something else? So in this case, the American Civil Liberties Union actually came out on the side of Judge Sand and said, you can order this because what you're trying to accomplish is desegregation, and that's the ultimate goal. Well, I was on the board of the Westchester Civil Liberties Union, and we went the other way. And we said, you know what, substantive goals are important, but you can't destroy the process in the meantime. You can't say that a person loses their right to vote the way they want to, even if it's the wrong way. They have that right. And so we defended the city councilmen, some of whom, frankly, I could say, were racist. You know, I wouldn't agree with them on the issues, but you have to separate the issues from the procedure. And Judge Sand held them in contempt, and that was reversed on appeal, because a court cannot tell someone that they can't use their right of free speech. So it's very deeply embedded in our way of doing things in this country. Now, this is a broad term, this concept of verbal acts, political speech. And if you look at the United States constitutional decisions by the courts, they talk about anonymous speech. So if you get a flyer on campus and nobody writes their name on it, you know what? That's protected. It may very well be that somebody was afraid, but they have a right to free speech. Or campaign finance, for example. One of the biggest problems we're having right now is all this money in politics. Where's it coming from? Well, the United States Supreme Court says that's speech. You have a right to spend your money to enhance your speech any way you want. And now you come down to school speech. Well, what happens on a college campus where some people are offended? They don't like what some other people are saying. And frankly, this is a big issue right now on college campuses. You heard the president the other day come out. How does Colin, is it Kaepernick or Kaepernick? I don't know how he pronounces his name. Kaepernick, okay. Well, he's exercising his right of free speech. He has said that he is not going to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. He's going to kneel down. And the president, I think, was 100% right saying he can do that. Well, the NFL doesn't like it. A lot of the football fans don't like it. But he has a constitutional right to do that. Now let's transfer that situation to a college campus. How many people here would protest if some Nazi showed up? Or somebody wearing a white sheet from, Ku Klux Klan? There seems to be, huh?
I thought we just agreed. I don't know if we raised our hand.
Okay, no, but you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Colin's got the right, but some other students who you disagree with don't. That raises a very important issue, because we don't want people who we disagree with to start proselytizing, to start convincing people of bad ideas. But at the same time, we have a system that guarantees the right to speak. So what do? It comes up in the context of sexual harassment. You know, I've been reading some cases about teachers who say some things that really upset women, gays, even guys, straight guys. They're upset when they hear a teacher say this. Well, do we believe that we somehow should come together and censor? Well, if you censor, who makes the decision? Majority? So then you have one college that does one thing because the majority of the kids go there, and then you have another college that does something else because a different majority goes there. I don't have an answer, but I want you to think about it in terms of the United States Constitution and what this country is all about. How do we balance these two? How do we protect people from things that they should be protected from, but at the same time don't destroy the very things that we're trying to foster? And I think Colin's situation is a perfect example of it. And the college campuses are on the other side. There's an old line that says, it's a philosophical question, I guess. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did it make a sound? Well, if you tell protesters that they can protest way off in the corner where nobody can hear them, well, is that free speech? If nobody can hear them, then is it really free speech? And it plays out in so many different ways. unions trying to organize a shop. Well, the shopping center guy says, you can't protest on my property. You got to protest out on the street. Okay, well, the street's a mile away and nobody's going to see them. Do they really have a right to free speech if they protest way out there? This comes up in so many different circumstances, and this is the kinds of things that really I think you guys have to talk about. You guys have to think about. When I went to college many years ago, I was on the student court, and there were protests against the war in Vietnam, and we had to deal with issues of people protesting. But for the protest of college students, we probably never would have gotten out of Vietnam. Now, you guys don't even know what Vietnam is, but it was an imposition. Well, yeah, the Vietnamese War. Lyndon Johnson, a former president, put the United States on the ground into a foreign country without a real declaration of war by Congress. But we had a draft at the time, which meant that students were being drafted out of school to go fight in a war they didn't understand. And what really ended it was, I think, all of the protests by students. And when their parents started to understand what was going on,